Good morning. I'd like to welcome you on this glorious Sunday. My name is Brian, and this is my wife, Anandi. And we'd especially like to welcome our Sunday Expanding Light guests at the Expanding Light and all our members from the Sacramento Ananda community. Our reading today is Perfection is Self-Transcendence. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. We begin this week with a passage from the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 5. Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. If ye love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the tax collectors the same? And if ye salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even pagans so? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. This teaching is a continuation of last week's lesson. To love all equally is possible only by seeing God everywhere, and others as well as in oneself. See whatever comes to you unasked for as a manifestation of His will. Be grateful for the pains you experience, for they are healing strokes of His love. Sometimes healing is effected only by strong measures, but His love for you is manifested in the very attempt to heal. Strive always to be impersonal, as though whatever happens to you were happening to someone else. Persecution gives us a supreme opportunity to deny the thought, this is happening to me, and to affirm our inner freedom from the thought of ego. Don't allow the negative perception of others to become your own self-definition. Seek God. This is the true goal of life, though how difficult to cling to in the midst of hatred, spite, and persecution. The Bhagavad Gita tells us in the 7th chapter, out of thousands, one strives for spiritual attainment. Out of many blessed true seekers who strive assiduously to reach me, one perhaps perceives me as I am. O true seeker, be one among all those thousands who seeks the supreme goal. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind.
Om, Om, Om. Good morning. It's a joy to be here with all of you today. I'd like to begin by reading from Whispers from Eternity, which is Yogananda's book of prayers and poems. This one is called, With Every Stroke of My Prayer, I Move Nearer to Thee. Father, swimming in the sea of my craving for Thee, I find myself beaten by the winds of severe trials, floating on cresting waves of pleasure and pain, then sinking down into the depths of indifference. I still keep looking for Thy shoreless shore. With every stroke of my powerful prayer, I move nearer to Thee. Never shall I give up. Thou Thyself, I know, dost look for my coming. Beautiful. Well, this morning's reading is really an important one. And in fact, if you're going through any challenges in your life, and that might be a fairly common experience for people, I suggest reading it again. It's a very, very powerful reading. Swami said that Master used to say, attunement is the most important quality on the spiritual path. People are having a hard time, but they wouldn't have to if they would stay in tune. And he would urge them again and again, stay in tune. When Swami was writing The Path, which was the earlier version of what's now called the New Path in the 70s, he was writing that chapter on attunement. And because of its importance, it was an important chapter in the book. And when his secretary, Asha, went down to gather up his work from the day, since he was writing it on a typewriter, he came to the door and she said it was like the wind was blowing his hair back. His whole energy was just exhilarated. And he was talking about the chapter on attunement, and he said, this was totally different than I expected that it would be. It just wrote itself. And so that chapter has always felt to me like a very important one. And one of the essential qualities that happens in that chapter in attunement is it's about negativity, how to avoid being negative. Because the truth is, we don't have to become godlike. We already are godlike. What we have to do is release the negativity that keeps us limited. And so that's what the reading today is talking about, and that's what the chapter in the Path is talking about. And this week, I prepared for Sunday service in a way I wasn't expecting, and it was like a little assignment from God. So I thought it might be useful to share that. On Tuesday, a friend of mine got very mad at me and accused me with a fair amount of energy of having a particular fault. And I would ask you at this point not to begin to hypothesize what you think that fault might be. Let's just not go there. But it began a very, very interesting process. And to back up a little bit, we have in ourselves 3 levels of consciousness. We have our subconscious mind, which is a very compelling part of our mind. And the subconscious mind is committed to not changing. And part of what it does is it convinces you that the other person is wrong, that the emotions that you feel are justified, and it really is very magnetic, and you can see that actually a high proportion of the world lives in holding on to the emotions of the subconscious mind. Well, when this little exchange happened and I walked away from it, I thought, this friend really doesn't like me. And suddenly, I really don't like them either. And so that was my subconscious response. And luckily, my conscious mind moved in very quickly. The conscious mind is the part of ourselves that's rational and reasonable, and most especially it's practical. And it says, is what you're doing now working? Could something else work better? And so this conscious mind just jumped in and went, you're not going to stay with that, are you? I mean, that will never serve you. That will make you so unhappy, and you will be stuck, and no good will come of it. And besides, the reading for this Sunday says that if you only love the people who love you, you're no better than the tax collectors. So you're going to have to do better than this. But I could feel that I was incapable of doing it just on my own. The conscious mind is practical, but it really doesn't have the power to lift you out of whirlpools of negativity. And I knew that if I would be transformed, how I would be transformed would depend completely on being able to attune myself to God at the superconscious. And so I began to pray to my guru and say, I need help. I really, really want to experience my higher self and to come to a whole different consciousness about this. And so I tried. Coincidentally, the last Sunday service I gave, I shared a prayer of Masters, which is very, very powerful, and it's to use in interpersonal challenges. And the prayer is that you're supposed to pray for the other person, Lord, fill them with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. And you do that for a minute, and then you pray for yourself, Lord, fill me with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Now, this prayer is staggeringly effective. I mean, I get responses from people that really are surprising to me. So I started to do that immediately, and I could feel that it was not going to work. It just wasn't the right thing. But any attempt to apply your mind to a more impersonal level, a more positive level, a more superconscious level is never wasted. And so I feel like that was kind of the groundwork, so it got me going. But the next morning in meditation, I was very committed. I wasn't thinking about the situation, but I was committed to feeling superconsciousness. And so I really did my practices with a lot of intention. And as I said, I wasn't thinking about the situation, but out of the blue, in the middle of that uplifted energy, the thought came to me, my friend is right. That's exactly what I need to work on. That quality is exactly it. And so I started to practice offering that negative quality upward. I started to practice trying to attune to the opposite good quality. But what was fascinating about the whole process was the instant that I felt like this is exactly what I need to work on. I felt absolutely no negativity toward my friend at all. The whole issue was completely over. I apologized, the smooth friendship came back again. But it was fascinating to me because it said, so much of our difficulties in life are because we want to protect the status quo. And if we can welcome these things that come to us, difficulties go away. So this was a very small and pretty benign situation, but still it offered the sort of the process by which this all works. So the foundation of all of this has to be meditation, because meditation changes us in a way that we cannot change any other way. Yogananda said, by practicing observing the breath without controlling the breath, we become more detached from our bodies. By having our mind, when our mind wanders in meditation and we bring it back, we become less involved with our personalities. We go, there's some other part of myself that's saying, no, I'm not going to go there. And we become more able to choose a more free and impersonal place to come from in our daily life. So nothing else can give it to us but that practice of the impersonality that comes from meditation. And there's another level to it too. In meditation, we begin to experience perhaps the inner light, perhaps inner joy, the world of the divine that's within us. And again, in the path, the earlier chapter of the path, Swami says that the more that we attune to the inner light in meditation, the more our consciousness takes on the quality of light. We are transformed in a way we can't be transformed any other way. And it's the same if it's joy that we're feeling, if we're feeling the presence of the Guru. All of those transform our minds in a way we can't do in any other way. Yogananda told a really delightful story that happened to him in India. He said that a man came to him, and this man said to him, "I have a terrible anger problem. In fact, I have a habit of slapping my employers." Needless to say, he also had a problem with employment, had a problem keeping his job. "And I like to throw things at them when I get angry." And so the first thing Yogananda said to him was, "Try counting to 100. You know, when you get angry, try counting to 100. He was trying to get him to be get a little bit more space between him and his reaction. Well, the man came back a short time later and he said, "I hate that practice." He said, while I'm counting to 100, I'm just getting madder and madder that I have to wait. I have to wait all this time before I can express my anger. And Yogananda said, it seemed like a hopeless case. But he said to the man, "Practice Kriya Yoga. And after your practice of Kriya Yoga, attune yourself to the light and feel that you are offering up your anger habit into the light. And that light is melting the grooves in your mind of the anger habit." And the man came back to him a short time later and he said, "I'm cured." He said, "This is no longer a problem for me." And Yogananda said, "But I wanted to test him." And so he said, I asked a few boys he knew the man had to walk back a certain path, and he asked a few boys to be taunt him and try to rouse his anger. And Yogananda said, "I hid in the trees and I watched." And he said the man was perfectly fine. Nothing touched him. He really had transformed himself through transcendence, through attuning to that light. So we need to practice, of course, meditation, and to pray to God when we have problems. Yogananda said, pray like a child. Say, "Lord, I'm in trouble. You've got to help me. Please help me." Just very simple. But what do we pray? How do we pray? We can't just pray, "Lord, take away this pain so I don't have to suffer." He said God listens to us, but he can't always answer us. I met a wonderful woman a couple of weeks ago who shared an amazing story with me. She's a very, very strong soul. And she was in a car accident about 10 years ago. And it was such an outrageous accident. The fact that she's alive is a miracle. And but her body was put together and she was on morphine for 2 years. Well, needless to say, she became addicted to morphine because it's a very, very addictive drug. And her doctors were trying to wean her off of morphine and put her on something that was slightly less addictive. And she said, "Well, why would I want to do that? Why don't I just get off of addictive drugs?" And so she said to her husband, "I'm going to just stop taking drugs, and no matter what I say to you, do not give me morphine." And she said that experience made her so much more compassionate for people who have a drug addiction, because she said for the next 3 days, every single cell in her body was screaming for morphine. She was lying on the floor, grabbing her husband's leg and shouting and pleading and begging him to give her morphine. But he didn't do it. And she then was free of it, free of the addiction, and has never looked back. but I was thinking about us and God. And God has made a pact with our soul to free us. And we might not appreciate the pact that he's made with our soul, and we may have changed our mind, just as, as she did when she was trying to give up morphine. It's like, oh, I changed my mind. And so when the tests come and the things are hard, we go, you know what? Let's just change this whole thing. Let's just change what I said. Take it away. I don't want that anymore. And God says, no, you don't understand. I made a pact with your soul. I have to be with you through this. You have to go through this. This is what your soul wanted to do. As painful as it is, as unpleasant it is, your soul asked me to send this to you, and that's why you have it. So please know that I am here with you, and know that I'm here to help you. But as much as you can, know that this test is for you. And so that is the approach. If we can say, Sister Gyanamata was Yogananda's most advanced disciple, and many of us know that when she was going through a difficult time, she said to God, what prayer will you answer? And she said, I knew immediately to pray, Lord, change no circumstance of my life, change me. And that's the prayer that will work for us, and that's where the transition comes. I was recently asked an interesting question. Someone was asking about miracles that had happened to me since I've been at Ananda, and then they were also asking what I thought about attunement. And so I was sort of amazed because I've had a number of miracles happen at Ananda, and they have been very, very meaningful and inspiring. And yet what came to my mind was something quite trivial, but I realized that it tied in with attunement very well. In the 80s, Bharat and I were running the center in the peninsula, and we had a house in Atherton that was an ashram, and there were about 18 people living there. And Swami Kriyananda came and stayed with us during a particularly important part of his life, and so we did our best to host him. Now, actually, I should back up a little bit. Before he came, for I don't know how many months, I had developed a really nasty-looking wart on my finger, on the back of my hand. I think it was the middle finger. And I did all the things you do for warts. I bought the over-the-counter drugs, and I even did the things like, putting a towel over it and then burying the towel in the backyard, which is sort of the old wives' tale approach. The Ayurvedic approach, which is feeding the birds. I tried all the different things to do, and nothing was budging this from my finger. So that was that. I mean, I just kept trying these strange things, and there it was. And so, meanwhile, we hosted Swami, and at the end of the visit, we were walking out to the car together, and he had his left hand on my shoulder, and I was resting my right hand on his back. And we were talking about his visit and all that, and said goodbye. And then I noticed the next day the wart was gone away. And I don't think that Swami noticed it and said, I must ask God for a miracle to remove that wart from her finger. I just don't think he operates in that way. But what I do think was, I was resting my hand in his aura. And he has so cleansed his aura of anything but light that no darkness, no virus, no negativity of any sort could exist within that aura. And I feel that holding my hand in that light was what miraculously, the wart was just simply gone. And so then I was thinking about the question of attunement and how it fits with this miracle. And it's this, that the great souls, such as Master, such as all of our masters, such as our Swami, are filled with light. They've completely attuned themselves to light. And we can hold ourselves in that light. These are alive to put our hand up to them. Swami's not around to just sort of hug him, hold our bodies next to him. But we do it in our meditation, we do it through our daily life, we do it in our consciousness by trying to attune to that pure light and offer yourself up into that light and feel that in that light all the little warts of negative thinking, of limited thinking, of resistance to what's happening in your life, they can all drop away. So every single one of us in this room has that light. That's what we're made of. We are that light. This is not something we have to become. We just have to hold ourselves in that light long enough so that everything that is not of that light can drop away. Thank you.